Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Freshly Pressed. Today we have with us Phoebe A. Xavier. Welcome to the
Hi,
show, Phoebe.
thanks for having me, Sarab.
Awesome. So, Phoebe, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into writing, into comics. Give us a bit about your history.
Yeah, sure. I got into comics as a very early as a kid. I was reading kind of early, and as I outgrew my Dr. Seuss books, I asked my mom for more to read, and she had a box full of comic books from the 50s and 60s when she was a kid. And so I started reading that at a really young age, and got to read all of her Supergirl, Lois Lane comic books. She was also into some horror books that Marvel put out back then, like The Witching Hour and Tales from the Crypt.
Mm,
And that was like my first taste of comic books. And it kind of from there, I just started reading stuff in the 80s based off of Hasbro stuff, like GI Joe and Transformers. I think launched in the mid '80s, and I bought some of those books, which led me to the X Men. And yeah, then I went through the '90s. I was a big X Men fan.
that's amazing. It's amazing how many people we get on the show who are X-Men fans. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm one, and I'm a big X-Men, and my run has been. I think I've seen this repeatedly so many times that it's from the early '90s, from Jim Lee and Chris Claremont's original
Oh
run.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, the art back then was incredible, and I was just like, he had been, Claremont had been the writer for so long that he was able to put like deep, like rooted things in that he then brought out like 50, 60 issues later, like setting up Scott Summers, Madeline Pryor, and stuff like that. And then with Inferno, then like the reveal of Madeline Pryor in just starting that annual like X Men crossover tradition through the '90s, that was pretty incredible.
that's amazing. Yeah, very true. Very true. Um, and I see that you've done a lot of writing. I know on this book you're an editor, but what got you into writing?
So I guess like I was a storyteller from very early. I had three younger siblings, and on long car rides, they would kind of look at me to soak up their boredom and tell me. They told me to tell them a story, and I would kind of keep ongoing, like recurring characters, and pick it up every time we got in the car to drive to grandma's. And so yeah, I started like that, just making stuff up for entertainment of my siblings before I ever sat down to write. And then I was fortunate enough to be like in a pretty good school system with teachers that had us do short stories for assignments and stuff. So through high school, I was writing short stories. At least my first three or four short stories like came I wrote in high school. I remember some of the content now, but the stories are lost to time. Like they were written down in the '80s and lost in the '80s. Um, but yeah, so even as a kid though, maybe I was like 11 or 12 when my friends and I tried to write our first comic books. Maybe a year or two later, I tried to write my first like Dungeons and Dragons book. Like I read all the old Dragonlance books and the Dark Sun books and some of the Forgotten Realms, but not all of it. And yeah, I think I might have been like 13 when I wrote like 30 pages of what would have been a Dark Sun book and like showed my mom.
Uh,
and and she reads a lot too. She reads a lot. Like at that time, was reading a lot more like much better written stuff than what I was reading. But so her reaction to it was like, yeah, it's kind of good for the genre. Like, and you're only 13, so you're pretty good. Like, so I don't know. I took
nice.
early encouragement and have been doing it for so long that like, yeah, writing is just a part of what I do day to day.
That's amazing. That's so good to know. Amazing. So tell us a bit about Viking Saga of the North and the campaign itself. Like, what is it about, and what's the story behind
Okay,
it?
yes. Jose is an artist from Guatemala, and there are a number of forums. I don't know how active you are on comic book forums on Facebook, but there's a lot of spaces for artists to find writers, or writers to find artists, or
Yeah.
people, just people that make anthologies to find people to do particular stories in a larger anthology. So he had been talking about he's looking for a publisher for his comic book, and I asked him to see what he had, and he had like a lot of really beautiful artwork, but not necessarily a story put together yet. And so I helped him and the other people he was working with at the time to develop a an order for the images to go in, and sort of a narrative arc that would, instead of trying to concentrate on one character through these images and pages, focus more on just history itself, and start with the battle that establishes the beginning of the Viking Age, and all the way through to the battle that is commonly referred to as the end of the Viking Age, and fill in the middle with details about their culture and their religious beliefs, the way they farmed, what they ate, and just more of like season to season, day to day, what it would have been like to be from northeastern Europe in the from the late 780s to the 1060s.
That's amazing. Even the art itself is actually quite incredible. It is reminiscent of a lot of I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but it is. I feel like it's very it has a very Nordic feel to it.
I think
Um,
some people have referenced that it looks like a like wood etching, and I do think it has like a wood etching kind of feel on some of them. And I think that's even in the texture of the coloring that Adriana makes that pop a little bit. But yeah, that's the. Even though I knew when I first saw the pages that like Jose didn't really have a story, and he's pitching me more of like, beautiful art and the idea of a book, I knew the art was something I wanted to be involved with, and yeah, I'm really happy to be putting this out with him.
That's amazing. And it's really fascinating when people put like history in comic book format. Like usually we're used to reading a lot of fiction and like superhero stuff and things like that. But when you put actual history in that format, that it just gives it a very different, rich feel to it. Um, I don't know if
Thank you.
know or have you ever read. There's an Australian author called Queenie Chen, and
Oh,
she basically adapts the stories of famous queens in
oh,
manga format.
that's cool.
It, that's such a cool idea, and it's so fascinating to just see that style being used to, like honor the lives of these great women from the history. And yeah, like this is what I absolutely love about this project because it's kind of
Thank you.
enshrining this history in this format that's very accessible.
That was also Jose's idea from the start. Like he told me that that's what the project was. He wanted it to be as realistic and true to Viking history and culture as possible, and yeah, because he didn't really have a fictitious basis for where the art and the story was coming from within him, from his inspiration.
That's amazing. Did you like how did you collaborate with Jose on the research and like fact finding and things
A
like
little
that
bit.
as
He had
well?
another friend that worked with him on it initially, and that's I received the initial like outline with the other friends uh narrative as they had laid it out, and there was a lot of interesting historical stuff already in there. Um, and some of that still remains, but that person left the project at a few months ago and didn't really want their name uh to be attached to the project anymore, so I won't, call them out or anything. But he just felt that the end product that I finally wrote was not what he would put his stamp of approval on. And but I think we sent you the promo version, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so you've seen the whole 20 pages, 22 pages, or whatever. And yeah, I think there were just a few details that, like, it's kind of the things that archaeologists or historians will quibble over. And there were a few, like, minute details that he was like, I don't agree to that. And I was like, well, I did the research and it took me like 8 hours to find that tiny detail that's interesting of reading on the internet. So sorry, it's coming in there. Um, so that's kind of how that happened. But yeah, so not all of the research was done by me. but the other research was done by one of Jose's friends who is an academic in that field, like that he does field work archaeologically and has been to some sites with Viking artifacts.
Oh wow, that's even more amazing. It's like people have actually gone to these sites and verified these things.
I
Wow.
think, yeah, I think like there's a certain type of sword that I reference in there, and we even like list by centimeter like the average length of these swords and the make of them, and that was I believe one of the sites that his friend had like actually physically been to and visited, if not
Wow,
done the original research. Yeah,
that's incredible. Um, can you go briefly into like what are the reward tiers and on
sure,
Kickstarter
yeah.
and things
We're
like that?
mostly just
Yeah.
offering the physical book, but also other than the physical book, we're offering a short story that I wrote called Bluetooth. It's a magical realism story about King Harold Gormison Bluetooth, the first king of Denmark. And it kind of goes through some in between worlds kind of things and brings us to the 21st century where Bluetooth finds himself manifested as like this force that has information flowing through him and he's all disoriented and yeah, yeah, so we show the full gamut of Bluetooth's existence in a magical realism style. And so that's I think available as an add-on or as a separate reward. And then what we have are a bunch of original drawings. If we can you click on like one of those one of the rewards of like the two fighters to over to this side. Yeah. Um
This one, the one
yeah,
here?
yeah, any of those.
Yeah.
So those are like original drawings that he did that Jose did, and he also has mailed the original versions of them, and it's ink on paper, and I think they're 14 by 17 or 11 by 18 are the two sizes, and yeah, he so that's a one of a kind thing. Like that's something he did, and over a
Yeah.
course of a couple hours, each of these drawings, and I got them in the mail a few weeks ago, just in time for the project to start, and I'm kind of hoping that they don't all get sold, so I get to keep one of them. But yeah, they're beautiful and one of a kind, unique reward.
Yeah, they sure do seem like they're like collectibles, right? Like you need them in your
I think
hands
a
and
bunch of them could wind up in a museum someday.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It definitely needs like love and care of like framing it beautifully and yeah, keeping it safe. Um,
To
that's
mail them?
amazing. That's sorry?
Yeah, yeah, to mail them. Did you ask? Do I think it's safe?
No, no, no. I'm saying it deserves to be safely kept in and cared for. Like it feels like it's something
Oh
like
yeah.
a beautiful collectible art. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. We have some sold out stuff as well. So these are all like one of the kind drawings that went
But I have
there
a
as
few
well.
more that I haven't posted yet. So tonight I'm probably going to post like another three or four that are unique, one of a kind rewards.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I think I have never like interviewed anyone with one of the kind rewards that the kind you have. So it's incredible.
I think when I first got into Kickstarter, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I saw a few projects that had similar approaches. But yeah, this was kind of our idea from the beginning. Me and Jose had discussed this that or the original art would be our main reward here, other than the book itself.
That's great. I think that's what makes the campaign stand out significantly as well from the others. And of course, you have plenty to stand out already. You have a beautifully researched story. You have great drawings. Like the colors are incredible. I think that art looks so good. Like it does. You actually feel like you're reading a history book.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. And with your experience, I'm pretty sure it's very well edited and laid out. So I feel it's a great campaign already. And to add to that, adding collectible art is amazing.
Yeah, I noticed when you were first looking at the page that when you're viewing it from Australia, it lists it in Australian dollars. That's totally crazy to me. I didn't realize that's how it worked.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I think it happened in the previous episode as well, and the guest was like, "Oh," she said, "this looks like I've already passed my goal, but why is it showing like this?" But I'm like, "Oh, it's Australian dollars. That's why it shows
Yeah.
more."
Yeah, that's crazy. I think tonight we're trying to break 40%. We're at about 37, 38 right now. And our goal is to push 40%. So whether it's in Australian dollars or American dollars, that's either way.
It's either way, yeah. I think the campaign looks fantastic. I'll be pretty sure to boost it on social media as well. Um, have you been around the circuit talking to a lot of other people about it as well?
I have been doing a number of podcasts. Yeah. I think a few of them that we pre-recorded actually don't launch until next week. So, like for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been doing podcasts which were pre-recorded and will probably drop next week.
Awesome, awesome. No, I think for all the viewers of Freshly Pressed, I would definitely it's something that they would really love because um, I know a lot of people who will listen to and who listen to the show and who I talk to as well. They're always purveyors of good quality art and good quality literature. And this I feel like this book elevates comic books to the literature to all the snooty people who feel comic books are not worthy of being called literature.
No, usually they're not. That's actually sometimes when I talk to my editor. I wrote a short story collection that I launched this year, and I worked with an editor on that. And he also works with me on comic books. And so sometimes when we're working on comic books, when he tries to edit certain things, I'll be like, Joseph, this isn't literature. This is a comic book. Like, we don't need to be like that accurate to like traditional English literature. We could be a little bit, we can draw outside the lines a little bit and have fun because it's a comic book.
Absolutely. No, no, I totally agree on that. And but like it's a funny thing. I have spoken to people who have grown up reading comic books, but they have gained so much from them. For example, one of these guys who I had a chat with actually learned English completely via comic books. And like he grew up in Middle East and he didn't have access to a lot of English literature. And the only thing he had was X-Men comics to read. So it can be a gateway to something like bigger and better, and he's a comic book writer now.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say, well, I'm sure he was inspired to write good action then.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or even like good family tales over the course of generations. The X Men are such a family.
Yeah, exactly. Very true, very true. um what else, what other, this is my usual question to a lot of guests as well,
Hmm.
is I like to put people on the spot sometimes.
It's
So
okay.
what are the top five pop culture things that you love? Like it could be a game, it could be a movie, it could be a book or a comic or anything you like. Uh, in terms of like something that may have inspired the way you work and and you approach things.
Okay, I would say cyberpunk. Like um, more specifically William Gibson, but like the everything that falls in the cyberpunk umbrella. Ghost in the Shell would be another big influence there as a cyberpunk influence. Um, um, a Star Wars. I was born the same week that Star Wars came out, and like as a kid, I definitely like Empire Strikes Back. I got to see in the drive-in when I was like 4, and then
Wow.
Return of the Jedi. I got to see like 7 times because I would take each of my aunts or uncles with me. I'd be like, "Have you seen Star Wars? Oh, take me to Star Wars or Return of the Jedi." So yeah, I got to see Return of the Jedi like 7 times in the theater. Um, and then yeah, just through the '80s, even though we didn't have so many movies, so much content coming out from Star Wars. There was still a lot of stuff that's no longer canon that they were putting out. The role playing games, some of the novels back then. We had the action figures. I'd say that was a constant influence over my life as far as creativity and storytelling. Um, Maybe Dungeons and Dragons and role playing in general as well.
Hmm.
Um, Played D&D, played Star Wars, Marvels. There was a role playing game called Cartoon that we used to play. Um, yeah, that was definitely a huge part of my high school, middle school years, and just stirring the imagination. I think anybody that's played role playing games probably has either has a creative imagination or just wasn't doing it right. Um, what else? Major factors influencing. Hmm. Um, I guess the X Men. We could throw the X Men in there as a separate entity.
Yep.
Definitely huge influence on both the characters that I create and yeah, the types of stories that I tell, the type of action or um, like I mentioned with the Claremont writing, that kind of like you tuck details in early that later on will like be big reveals.
Mm.
So yeah, maybe I learned that from some of the writers on there. Coming from that influence also is John Byrne, who I consider one of the best writers, comic book writers of all time. Um,
Mm.
I owned all of his She-Hulk books and all of his Alpha Flight books. I even read Next Men, some of his indie stuff. But yeah, John Byrne's a genius. I think I need a fifth one, right? Hmm. Let's say cartoon television's on cartoon, like everything from The Simpsons to Adult Swim
Nice.
to like the Rick and Morty and shit that's coming out these days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm a
It's
little bit of a
amazing how, yeah, sorry, you were saying?
no, it's okay. I'm a little bit of a stoner, and getting high and watching cartoons to this day is still something that brings joy to my life.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's amazing how like I feel sometimes adult cartoons are really underrated, despite like Rick and Morty being a really big thing and everything. I feel like there's so many other like adult cartoons that fly under the radar. Like I've watched this office comedy called Fired on Mars recently. It was
Okay,
on HBO.
okay.
Which yeah, it was kind of like Office Space meets like kind of like science fiction version of that.
Oh,
It has like present day elements, like the protagonist is a uh, he's a graphic designer, and but the science fiction element is they in future everyone like we've started like a company on Mars. It's like a capitalist haven now, and like he's just transported there, and he gets fired from his job, but he has no way to go back to Earth because he's broke. So he just yeah, so it's incredibly funny in parts. So yeah, I mean like it's amazing how so many of these just fly under the radar, like adult
oh yeah.
cartoons. Yeah,
Harmon has two new cartoons this year. Dan Harmon, creator of Rick and Morty, he put out Strange Planet and Crapopolis just launched. There's like 4 episodes of Crapopolis. So
nice.
Harmon actually has 3 adult cartoons at the moment running. Strange Planet was really good, and I'm sure everybody's seen the little cartoon memes that it's based on. They're these little blue people that just like they call alcohol mild poison and just cute like shit that I know everybody's seen on their Facebook feed, and they made a whole freaking cartoon out of it. And
Yeah, yeah.
Harmon brought back Danny Pudi, who was Abed on
Oh,
Community, and
I love
he was
Danny
just one of
Pudi.
my favorite actors in the last 10 years on any sort of sitcom television show. Oh, he did that DC Powerless as well. He did the one season of that. And yeah, I'd love to see him back with Harmon doing some funny stuff.
He even did DuckTales. Do you know that? He was
Oh
like
no,
he
was he a voice
was
on DuckTales?
yeah, he
I'm
did
too
the
old for
most
that now,
recent,
but
yeah. Yeah.
no, I did not
Um,
know that. Yeah, I love him.
yeah, he's amazing. That's super cool. Coming back to the book, sorry, segue back into the book.
That's cool.
I had a little question
Yeah.
around like obviously this is a historical narrative, and did you like how did you make it work as an arc, as a storybook, so to speak? Like as an editor, that might have been your job to actually make it into like a storybook, a cohesive,
Yeah.
story that reads from cover to cover. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, he actually gave me 40 images to start with, and we only wound up with 22 pages. And in there, there's a couple of splash pages, and and there's a bunch of images that I was like, hey, we need another little panel over here of this going on, or a little panel of this going on. So Of the 40 original images, I'd say we use like 22 of them. And those are the ones that are, you can see it's a slightly more textured coloring to it. Those are the ones that Adriana had done work on. And like, okay, so that horse picture right there is like, was one of the ones Adriana colored. So is the other one with that guy right there.
Yeah.
Standing in front of the farm. And you'll see if you scroll down a little further, I can show you the ones that are just Jose's coloring. Oh yeah. So everything over here, I think these three are the one with the ducks, Adriana colored, and the other three Jose colored. And the other three are
Ah,
also ones that I was like, hey, since I'm talking about this on this page, I'm going to need you to do this panel, this panel, this panel. And so he did do additional art where once I had the narrative written out, the script written, and I just kind of took it like page by page, topic by topic, and I had to do it a little bit chronologically. I had to start with like the first battle, the first historically like recorded raid where all of England was kind of put on notice. Like, holy shit, these dudes might just sail into town and kill everybody. Like this is real. This might happen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then for 300 years, it happened pretty regularly.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Also, they did explore and establish places all the way from Iceland to Canada. They were incredible seafarers, boat builders, and yeah, murdering people for gold isn't like their only thing. And I think that's something that we try to make clear in the book. They were also explorers, just trying to find other land where they could farm.
Wow, that's amazing. No, I think I'm pretty sure it's great. I will definitely. Do you have digital rewards as well? Do you have any like
Oh, you know
digital?
what? I have to add a digital tier that will give them all of our other books, all my other 1, 2, 3 Go publication books. That'd be like almost 15 comic books, plus my short story collection, and also the newer short story Bluetooth. So yeah, I got to put that up as just a maybe like a $30 block of just digital rewards.
That's awesome. I think the only like for example a backer like myself, like I live in Australia, so it's sometimes incredibly expensive to get something shipped over here, you know.
Hmm.
So digital rewards do help to both elevate the campaign as well as get backers like myself who are overseas.
May I ask where in Australia you are?
I'm in Sydney.
Okay, I've been to Sydney before. I landed there twice and flew out of there twice. I lived in Canberra for a little while.
Oh wow, Canberra's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
Canberra is pretty fun. But then we also, me and my one friend, hitchhiked all the way from Sydney to Byron Bay, and then into
Byron Bay is so
Nimbin. And
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, mostly was in New South Wales and the ACT. But yeah, I lived in Australia for a minute. I really liked Australia.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's always glad to know somebody who's lived here and enjoyed the time here as well.
Yeah, I love it there. Yeah, it was really fun. I also found okay, America is a place with a lot of racist people, and I encountered Australian racism, but it was just a different form of racism, where I would find like white UK people racist against Italian people, and I'd be like, wait, in America, that's just white people and white people. Like, how are you calling him a Western Oriental gentleman or whatever? Like, that's just another white guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like it's not good. It's not like I'm not definitely not like saying endorsing racism, but we have two different types of racism. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely.
and I had to
I
get out of
mean,
America to understand that. Like, yeah,
yeah. Yeah. That's very true. I haven't been to the United States, so I have a very warped view of.
it's okay.
uh, I mean, I have been to United States a few times, but only to the major cities, to San
Yeah,
Francisco, to New York, and those kind of places. I'm pretty sure small town US is a completely different.
it's very different. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but
and
yeah,
there are some great cities in America, and I recommend you come back and visit. But yeah, also maybe stay out of a lot of the middle of the country.
yeah. I mean, I do love Australia. I do. I'm actually surprised that a lot of regional towns in Australia are so much more liberal and open to immigrants than a lot of like larger towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, people here like I'm an immigrant here as well, and my experience has been nothing short of like incredible. Like people have just accepted us, and it's been lovely being part of the community here. So
I think another part
yeah,
of like the racial dynamic in Australia is like there's so many Aboriginal people still around that it's like you guys don't have the same ability that white Americans do to kind of just pretend that they were never here. I think Aboriginal people in Australia are so prevalent and still like existing that like yeah, it changes the texture and directions in which different racism stereotypes fly or whatever.
absolutely,
Because I've
absolutely.
seen people like that are like white and not racist towards anybody else, just be kind of still standoffish, like yo, Aboriginal people are dodgy or whatever. And I'm like, no, they're not. Like what? You took their land. What? But
Absolutely not.
yeah, but whatever. It's just different places, different worlds. You know, different countries.
Yeah, yeah. New Zealand takes it another like notch up. They have officially like I don't know if you have been to New Zealand or
No,
not, but
no.
if you the thing that strikes the most there is they have taken their indigenous culture of like Maori and Pacifica Islander people and brought it to mainstreams because Maori is like a day-to-day language in government and everywhere, like on the streets as well. You see every all like Maori people in the mainstream, and you know, and they're like it's amazing. Like they have uh, this like, of course, not denying that there's. I'm not saying that there's no racism
Yeah,
in
there's
New
still
Zealand.
elements. Yeah.
There's still, yeah, of course, but it's the indigenous culture is live and thriving, and that's amazing. It's very beautiful.
Yes, much more celebrated. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We're coming to time, but thanks a lot for coming on the show, Phoebe. I really appreciate it. Great having you here, and this is a beautiful campaign which people should back. So yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Awesome. See ya.